All right, let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the American Solar Energy Society's webinar on Women Powering Solar, Real Stories and Real Impact. We're so glad you could join us today. My name is Ella Nielsen, and I am the Programs Director here at ASES. This Earth Month, we are celebrating women-led conversation about what inspired our speakers to install the solar systems powering their homes today. This special ASES webinar brings together a panel of well-informed women who will share their personal journeys, practical insights, and everyday realities of living with solar energy. To kick off, I would like to inform you of who ASES is and highlight some of our current events and programs. Oops. The American Solar Energy Society is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that was established in 1954 and advocates for sustainable living and 100% renewable energy by sharing information, events, and resources to cultivate community and power progress. You are all welcome to join us at any time at ases.org/join, and you all get 10% off because you're here at our webinar, just using promo code webinar at ases.org/join. We are proud to be hosting the ASES Women's Hands-On PV Workshop taking place on June 19th through 22nd in Boulder, Colorado. We're excited to have Marlene Brown, a longtime ASES supporter and ASES Life member, and who's also a speaker today, join us as our Women's PV Workshop instructor. No experience is needed. In this workshop, everyone will be learning how to size and design a solar PV system, how to reduce energy consumption at home or at work, identify optimal array locations for maximum energy production, learn all about the types of PV systems, and practice safety and power tool use. We will be in Boulder, Colorado at a local public high school called Fairview, and any female identifying folks ages 18 and up are welcome to join, or if you are 15 and up, you can join with an accompanied adult. You are all invited to register for our 55th Annual National Solar Conference, Solar 2026, Solar for All Y'all. This conference will bring the solar community together to accelerate the adoption of solar energy as the solution for providing our buildings, homes, and communities with clean, locally produced energy, and for making our energy infrastructure more resilient, reliable under a rapidly growing energy demand. The conference will be on October 19th through 21st at the Palmer Event Center in Austin, Texas. We'll be celebrating the 50th anniversary of one of our state chapters, the Texas Solar Energy Society. And please feel free to head over to ases.org/conference to register and learn more. Up next is just some quick program updates. The National Solar Tour is our largest annual grassroots solar event, which includes photovoltaics, passive solar, wind, electric vehicles, sustainable living, and energy-first strategies. Tours are hosted by homeowners, businesses, schools, religious institutions, organizations, and they post their tour on the National Solar Tour map completely for free. We provide the platform, the support, the promotion, and the resources for all tour organizers. Thousands of folks attend in person and virtually. We always aim for 50 states, and we've been getting that over the last multiple years. And this year's Showcase Weekend is October 2nd through the 4th, kicking off October's Energy Awareness Month. But in-person and virtual tours take place anytime throughout the year, and especially during Earth Month here in April. So feel free to check out nationalsolartour.org to attend or host a tour in your community. Lastly, our Solar Today magazine is the American Solar Energy Society's flagship magazine that has been informing and inspiring our community since 1987. We send out 4 issues each year to our 20,000 plus ASES members, with some articles published publicly on our website. Solar Today is both a digital and printed publication written by experts from across our professional network. It delivers data-driven, fiercely enthusiastic reporting on the solar industry, helping our readers understand and navigate the energy transition with a special focus on solar power in the United States. We're always looking for contributors to the magazine, so if you're interested in pitching an article, please email me at info@ases.org, and I will send you the instructions. Thank you for listening to these ASES updates. I wanted to note that this webinar will soon be available in a recorded format on our YouTube, and I'll also send a follow-up note as well. Please feel free to add any comments or questions in the chat, and we'll be sure to get to it at the end of this webinar. And now I will hand it over to Karen Soares, who is our wonderful ASES Board of Directors Chair, and she will be moderating today's webinar.
We appreciate you being here. I love and am passionate about women empowering women. That's not to exclude the men, but to highlight the women. So thank you for being here. We look forward to having a great evening with you. I want to start with first sharing a story. The three women that are presenting today, I've never said this to them, but they've impacted my life. I am ACES chair, but I wouldn't be chair. I wouldn't know much about ACES if it wasn't for Jill Cliburn. She actually encouraged me to join the board of directors for ACES, and I did so, and I have been hooked ever since. When you align yourself or you find the people that speak the language that you're speaking, you can't do anything but be thrilled about it. So I am happy to be a part of ACES. I am excited about women empowering women, and I'm happy that you're a part of this webinar this evening. The other young lady is Marlene Brown. Well, she was the one that first taught me about PV installation. We spent a week with her, and not only did I spend the week with her, she was the perfect host. We had what? Pilates in the park, we had dinners, we went on visits. It was a great time spending time with Marlene. And Wyldon Fishman. I mean, I've spent the most time with Wyldon as she and I co-chaired on the editorial board for board of directors for Solar Today magazine. And we've had a great time doing that. And right now we're in the position where we pivot to not just education and sharing stories, but being a part of community. So we're so glad you're here. We want to tell you all you want to know about energy and how do you install solar and other appliances and how we can help you with that. So with that, our first presenter this evening is Marlene Brown. And she's going to have a topic of how do I get this stuff up on my roof. And with that, Marlene, take it away.
Hi, my name's Marlene Brown, and I'm not on the board of ACES, but I've been working with ACES for 30 years, maybe more. I don't know, a long time. And just a quick background is I am not a retired engineer. I worked at Sandia National Labs for 23 years, and now I teach hands-on PV at the local community college, and I love it. I do a lot of other stuff too, but that's kind of my background. So let me share my slides so we can get to all of our speakers today. I'm going to ask you to hold your questions until the end because just so we can get through all the speakers. And it might be that we'll have to do more of these and get back to you, and who knows. Okay, so how do I get this stuff on my roof and answers to common questions about PV? Okay. And I am a past president of my local ACES chapter, by the way, which is New Mexico. I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So I was past president. So I put PV on my own house in 2004 as an all women's class. I actually had friends and I did this class with all friends. And I had the first REC meter in the state of New Mexico, and the REC is a renewable energy credit meter. So I had PV on my house. I put my PV on my house in 2004, and then in 2006 is when we got the REC meter, but I was the first one to get it because I was president of the New Mexico Solar Energy Association, and we wanted to have a big media event. And this is part of that media event over here in this slide on the bottom right. So this is my house in Albuquerque, and I painted my conduit purple just because. This is my PV is on the roof and it comes down to the rest of my system here. And this is the same system I still have now in 2025. I've changed this inverter once, and I'll be upgrading it. I'll be upgrading the system probably later this year, and I can talk about that later. Okay. So this is my roof and putting my system on. I actually have 8 modules. I got 1 kilowatt. I have a tiny little system on my roof. This is just a visual of my system. It's not the exact system, but I have modules here, and then there's a chimney, and there's a few modules on the other side. So I have 8 modules up on my roof, and it's 1.2 kilowatts. So it's this tiny little system. And so it's PV, it's just a grid tied PV system. So there's modules going, and there's some safety disconnects, but basically it's modules going into a grid tied inverter. This is interactive with the grid, and then going to my main panel. And I have 2 meters now. So this is my main meter that goes forward and backward. And then I have a meter that measures the output of my inverter, my device that changes DC to AC. And here's some pictures of putting PV on my roof. Love these pictures. It was so fun doing this. So there's me, and I was teaching friends, and actually I had a roommate at the time, and this is getting the modules up on the roof and making sure that we got underneath the modules, did some wire management. It was very fun. And then we always have to talk about safety no matter what we're doing. I just love this picture because it's, a woman in a harness and power tools. But regardless of what you're doing, you always have to think about the next step, and you got to think about safety and just this is from a workshop that I did in Oregon, and we were 2 stories up, and we actually had to be tied off legally to do this workshop. I love that picture though. Okay, so general questions. So some of the questions you need to answer before the system's in. So who is doing this? What's your profile? What's your lifestyle? What's your budget? No matter what you want to do with PV, it's always going to come down to money. Always. Okay. Why are we doing it? Right? What's your motivation? What do you want out of this? Is it just because you hate the utility? Do you just want to save some money? What is it? Right? What are the loads? Right? And a load is anything that consumes power. So what loads do you have? How important are they? How many do you have? Make a note of that. When do you use them? Right? Are you home during the day? Are you gone during the day? Okay. So what's the profile like? And where are you in the world? I'm in Albuquerque. You could be in, the Caribbean, like my background, but whatever. And what's the structure like? Is it a flat roof? Is it a pitched roof? Are you going to do it on the ground? What is it? Okay. And then are you going to add to the system later? Those are things you want to think about all before you put the system in. So just buying things is not a good idea. Think about what you're doing before you do it. Okay. And have you planned for expansion if you change it? Right? Did you plan? Do you have room on the roof? Do you have room with your inverter? Are you doing a grid tied system, an off grid system? What are you doing? Okay. So adding PV to a new or existing building, right? If you have I want to have an energy efficient business or home, what do I do? Right? Right? Add PV or not? How do I get ready? Think about that. So before you ever do PV, if you remember nothing else about this lecture, energy efficiency and conservation, do that first. It's the low hanging fruit. It's free. It's cheap, right? Do all the easy stuff first. Tighten up your home, energy efficiency and conservation first. Okay. So think about it. And then think about, how are you going to mount it? Where is it going to be? On the roof, on the ground, on a pole? Where is it going to go? Okay. Where are you going to orient it, right? There is a difference between true south and magnetic south. It's not that big of a deal, but you want to know the difference. And the more you can get it true south, the better it is. If you want to learn about that, you can take my classes. Latitude, right? Albuquerque is 35 degrees north latitude. Our solar window is 9 to 3. So you want to make sure there's no shading between 9 and 3. In New Mexico, we can have a lot longer sunlight in the summer and less in the winter, but our solar window is considered 9 to 3. Okay. And your roof should be at least 10 years, have at least 10 years or more before you put anything on your roof. Otherwise, think about updating your roof before you put PV on. You don't want to put it on, have to take it off, re-roof, and then put it back. Okay. Save yourself some hassle. Three main questions. What am I going to power? So, what am I powering? What am I doing? Right? What's my loads? What is consuming power? How much power does each thing use? And how many hours a day will I use it? Those are the three biggies. And you want to do that for everything in your house. Okay. And you can use your electric bill, but do all your energy efficiency and conservation first. Oh, I never got my little thing started. Okay. So, and then know your jurisdiction, right? There's an authority having jurisdiction wherever you are, and you need to do things by the code, right? If you're off grid in the middle of nowhere, maybe you can circumvent some of that. But I teach the code, so know what code cycle you're on. Use the code. Understand your authority, having jurisdiction. People want to help you. They're really not out to get you. There's everybody out there really wants to help you. Okay. Looking at your loads, could you do something more efficiently? Could you do it another way? Could you do with less, without, right? Could you do something DC only or while the sun shines, right? And where am I putting this stuff? On a pole, on a roof, on the ground, right? Think about all these things. So, and the building structure must support it. We always worry about wind, right? Wind and water, meaning roof leaks. If you are going to if you have a flat roof, you can do something called a ballasted system where you don't have to have penetrations. But if you have a pitched roof, you are going to have penetrations. You want to make sure you get into the rafters, and because we worry about wind and water leaks, right? So we want to seal up any penetrations in the roof. Okay, and aesthetics are important. Okay, and do you need access to the modules? And here's some pictures of some workshops that I've done over time. This is in New Mexico at a child development facility. There's actually another array behind this, but we're kind of straight on, so you can't see it. But this was a group. This is a workshop I did in Austin. That was all women, really fun. We got ourselves on the news. That's pretty common. Women doing PV, getting on the news. This is one that I did in north of Albuquerque. And the arrays over to the left. Here's the balance of systems. This is at the zoo in Albuquerque. Very fun. So advantages, right? PV doesn't consume any fuel. Photovoltaics can't be used up. It's quiet, no maintenance, very little. Okay, they're modular, so depends on the system of what you're going to add. There's very little, but think about, it could be that you can't afford much now and you might be able to afford some more later. There might be some issues with that, but risk of fire is low, it's reliable, modular, durable. Okay, disadvantages, it can be pricey. You got to, budget is going to be the bottom line. If you want to do anything off grid or when the utility's down, you're going to need batteries. Okay. And it's going to be required. So, and think about if you have anything that's on DC, it's not as common anymore, but AC appliances are much more. We just have so many of it. Supply and demand has made them, much more robust than any DC appliances. And disadvantage, weather dependent. And people still have issues with solar, but we can still help people get over that. And what could possibly go wrong? So let me tell you, I really plan for anything that can go wrong, and things do. So I don't really have time to talk about a lot of stories, but whatever can go wrong will go wrong. So you got to be flexible. You got to stop, make sure that you don't do any permanent damage, right? There's always time to educate. The big thing for me that I could say is if we take our time and we do it right, it's better than, rushing and having to do it over. Okay. I have many, many stories about doing installs, but I can just tell you being flexible, taking your time, working with folks, making sure people understand what they're doing will make things a lot more enjoyable for all. And that's my presentation.
Thank you, Marlene. That was wonderful.
All right.
So our next Our next presenter is Jill Cliburn. Jill is presenting on getting the most from your home energy upgrades. Jill, take it away.
I'm not exactly sure if that's what I'm going to talk about because I'm going to talk about a few other things as well. But what I wanted to start with actually was, Karen mentioned how we met, and that was really one of my most interesting projects in my career. I've had a very long career in solar. And one of the pleasures of my job has been that I was one of the groundbreakers, so to speak, in community solar. And actually, that goes back all the way to, for me, 2014, 2013. But then we had a program that was national and invited the participants in that DOE sponsored program to the ASES conference. And at that time, Karen was one of the community solar pioneers. And the group that was there was so varied and so enthusiastic of, people who were not in solar for a long time. And some of them to this very day are solar leaders. Some of them went on to do other things. But I think my talk is really about how all these things are intertwined. So, the community, really the country, our future and our homes. Marlene's talk might have maybe excited a lot of people. It certainly excited me. But for some people, they're like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to get up on a roof. So I thought I would talk about the different ways that you can participate and why all of these different levels of participation make such a huge difference. And further, why I think women are leaders in this area. Sometimes, you turn on the news and you hear that the solar age is over. It is not politically supported as much as it once was. But I'm here to tell you there is no solar eclipse in the industry. It is, in fact, one of the greatest solutions that we have for the situation we find ourselves in. And I'm going to touch on the current cost crisis and some of the supply chain issues. It's difficult right now for utilities to build other things. The highest costs that we're in and feeling as consumers are coming from the costs of the infrastructure. So, if you're looking to build a natural gas plant, it's really hard to get that going. If you're going to build a nuclear plant, well, hold on to your seats, But solar and wind are going very well, and so is battery storage. 7% of the new generating capacity so far in 2026, as they look forward for the rest of the year, only 7% is not going to be clean energy. The rest of it is clean energy. So this is our time. Now, to be fair, it is true that come 2028, when all of the incentives are kind of washed out of the system, it will be up to our communities to carry this on and to fire up, and I use that very figuratively, the solar industry to keep this thing going. And I think truly one way that we can do that is to find ways to motivate not only ourselves, but our neighbors. One of the shocking things that I talked about at our last ASES conference was that support for solar is slipping nationwide, and it's slipping across the board. The chart that I showed at our last ASES conference in Boulder was a chart that was made after the new administration took over in 2025, and it looked like it was kind of sad. I'll tell you what, this chart was drawn on polling numbers from just last month, March of 2026, And it seems to be that people are hearing a message that solar is somehow bad for our country, somehow not the way to go. There has been some other friction, which I'm perfectly happy to say we're going to be feeling friction and needing to solve a lot of problems. But the opportunity is here for you and your colleagues and your neighbors to talk up solar and to let people know that it truly is a solution. If you want to get really fired up, I would say join a workshop like the workshop that Marlene described, where you'll learn to do things you didn't think you knew how to do. In fact, you didn't, but you'll learn how to try new things and try them safely. And then all of the mystery and magic of solar energy will be within reach, and it won't be a negative and scary thing. I loved it that Marlene said, if you join a workshop to do PV with other women, it's going to get on the news. Let's make sure it gets on the news. Let's get out there and build some solar, maybe for our schools, maybe for our homes, maybe for the homes of people who cannot do it themselves, and spread the word that this is a solution. The other part of the message is that we're at a point with solar energy where everything we do matters. There's a saying you may have heard of, Jill of all trades. Well, actually, I guess it's Jack of all trades, but I'm Jill, so there you go. That is actually my career encapsulated. I have worked in just about every corner of the clean energy world, from being the first state solar program manager for Illinois back in the early days when we were building solar greenhouses and solar thermal systems, to working with community action agencies in 3 counties, and also with immigrants who needed to have weatherization work done on their homes, and it wasn't funded at that time by the government. Pulling volunteers together, getting hands-on, doing workshops. The program that was called HELP, Household Energy Loss Prevention. And I'll tell you, I think this year, 2026, going into 2027, is going to be a time when we need household energy loss prevention help. But we've also come a long, long way. I went through my heat pump phase. I went through my national association organizing phase, working with utilities. As I've described, I actually worked with solar plus storage, solar plus load flexibility. And actually, if you look at this picture, you can see all of these different openings. So there's not a person who you can talk to who you can't interest in some aspect of the clean energy puzzle. And this is not the picture that we could have drawn when I first started my career. When I first started my career, everything moved in one direction, and the small customers were basically off grid if they were going to go solar electric. So now we have many more opportunities. We also have this opportunity to help our communities through community solar. I'm going to tell you probably the saddest news of this whole talk, which is that I have a talk on this National Solar Tour. Everybody should go to the National Solar Tour online. And then possibly, if you're interested, in October, get in your car and go see a few of these places in real life. But last year, I put my house on the National Solar Tour. At that point in time, I had all of the energy efficiency done. A 2,000 square foot house only needed a 3 kilowatt solar system, which we installed in 2016. We didn't really have an electric bill to speak of. And we were very comfortable and very happy. But we had to move. Life happens. And so now I find myself in a condominium, a condo. And there's no way that I'm going to get solar here. Although the condo board is going to hear from me about some possibilities I've already been looking at. But the quickest way for me to contribute to green my electricity and to help my neighbors is to join a community solar project. And, we do have some of these in the state I'm in, which is Illinois. I've also worked with rural electric co-ops quite a lot. That's my territory. Still is across the country. I've been working in places like North Carolina, the islands off of Washington State, small towns in Georgia. A couple of years ago, I mentored the first community solar program in Wyoming. So there are so many opportunities, and I'm more than happy to talk to folks who have specific questions. You can see here, kind of what the steps are. We hear a lot about balcony solar now, and my perspective on balcony solar is, if you can do that, do it. It's legal in your state, and many states are making it legal to have a very small solar system that you can have in an apartment or condo. But you want to do as much impact as possible, and you want to engage with your community. This is why women in solar are so strong. We're not afraid of engaging with our communities. We're not interested only in the profit motive, top down. I'm making a generalization, but these are women that I work with, women that I admire, who have really made a huge, huge difference. I mentored a woman who was working at Vote Solar. She actually, when she was in graduate school, 10 years ago, and now she is working for Vote Solar, and circulated this diagram at the bottom of the page. But here's the tough news. Okay, we're looking at, like, in the last year, unless you've noticed, I'd be surprised, you probably noticed that your electric bills were higher. In 12 states across the US, they were 10% higher last year. There are a few states where it went down, but right now we're facing the war with Iran, and I think it's pretty clear that all of our energy costs are going up. Natural gas costs are impacted, tech supply chains are impacted, and that's on top of all of the other issues with the grid infrastructure that have been forcing electric rates, to be reassessed. I don't think it's necessarily the death toll for the American grid. I just showed you a picture where if we are all participating on both a personal and a policy level, we can own it. We can make it better. And that is something that, I really encourage you to do, besides getting that tool belt and seeing what you can do in your own home. These numbers, including this recent, and I mean recent, I just looked it up at the Energy Information Agency yesterday, and they're predicting 4.5 to 6% increase in electricity costs this summer because of current international conditions. But they didn't even really take into account this. So yeah, this is the seasonal weather forecast. You can look at it later, or you can, like, stick your head out the window. And if you live where I live, it's, I think, 85 or something today, which is crazy. So what can you do? Well, Wyldon, who's going to talk next, is going to give you lots and lots of ideas. I just wanted to mention a few. The last time I was here in Springfield, I worked for the utility, which is a public power utility. I love public power. And we did this fun campaign called 4 Cool Moves. So while you're busy waiting for your solar system to be installed this summer, you're still going to have that high heat and discomfort in your home. So I would say one thing is make sure that you're using LEDs. Take a look at your windows. Make sure that you are using shade when the sun is streaking in. And then, of course, at night, if it's cooler, let those shades up and let some air in. And then fans. Fans are better than they were. If you hated fans when you were younger, try them again. Try the EnergyStar.gov website and see what you could do with that. And then electrification, which I'll talk about a little bit more in just a second. So I know this has been a whirlwind tour. There's just so much that you can do, and so much that you can do as a woman. I mean, this was a picture of me when our solar on our home was being installed. And, when they came to do the sales pitch and when they came to do the install, they were looking for my husband. And I was like, hey, he's not here. You got to work with me. I'm the one. And I really admire the work that Marlene has done. I've done a little bit of hands-on work, but as I've said, mostly in construction and not so much in electricity, which is ironic for me. But hey, I'm still kicking. Maybe I'll take up a new cause. When you're looking at this from another place in the country and you say, well, what does solar cost? I recommend energysage.org and download their market intel reports. All of these are links. They list what the average price of solar is in each state. And it just came out. It's also very current data. Your utility, again, can be a really good source. The Beneficial Electrification League, the Sierra Club Clean Heat Campaign. These are all really good sources for, webinars, handouts, sometimes in-person demos and meetings. And a new thing, I'm going to be talking to this guy. I got a phone call from Third Act. Yeah, I'm showing my age. It's Bill McKibben's program for people who are, either retired or approaching retirement, or just interested in hanging out with gray-haired people. And the idea is that these are folks who have learned a lot in their lives and have some volunteer time, and they're very interested in working with solar advocates. So I'm going to talk to him about working with people like, ASES members. Let's think about that. I did some work over the last few years trying to develop some ideas on that very theme. So that's pretty much it for me. And I think now I'm going to hand it over to Wyldon, who will take you from this big stage to inside the house. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jill. Wyldon, it's all yours.
And Ella's loading. Thank you, Ella. So I'm Wyldon Fishman. I was we moved a lot for telecommunications careers. And I wound up back in Dallas, and Lisa Silguero was a videographer videotaping this League of Women Voters meeting on clean air, clean water. She says, could you watch my camera for me? She comes back and says, you want to start a solar group? We started the North Texas Renewable Energy Group, which is part of Texas's Solar Energy Society. And then just a few years later, I moved back up to New York, to the Bronx, to take care of my mom. And the ASES office said, open in New York, you got to do a New York chapter, you got to do. So I've been doing exhibit table work in Dallas, Fort Worth, and then throughout New York State for about 15 years. And we distribute Green Energy Times, which is greenenergytimes.org, fully searchable, 17 years of articles. It's a newspaper that we sort of slide into the free places where you can put newspapers in grocery stores and that kind of thing. So I'm the New York distributor. Oh, we also paper the Capitol with the Green Energy Times. So we can look at what it's like to build new. And when we talked fans in every room, that's a really big rule. And Jill just mentioned that one. So next slide. And when you build new, you have the privileges of having the bigger windows on the south side. So one day we had a meeting in Dallas and the speaker didn't show up. And I said, well, everybody talk about what's efficient. And then we voted on it. And number one is orientation. So you can see that, well, there's some solar modules up there, just 2.4 kW, and a hot water, old style, up there on the roof. And that's the thing. And then you want much smaller windows on the east and the west and on the north side of the building. Eyebrows are the funny things that are jutting out. They make a bit more shade, especially after June 21st, the sun starts coming back into the house. On December 21st, the sunlight is touching the stairway in the back of that room. So it's like this huge sundial. It goes in, it comes back out. But August would be a bit warmer in the house if I didn't have those eyebrows. When I knew from ASES, because I had attended a lot of ASES conferences and I'd learned how to build a passive solar house. And one of the other things I learned was a soft start well pump. I knew on my solar system in the middle of nowhere, Vermont, I wanted to have batteries to support my soft start well pump. That was one, doesn't take much. And then two, my hot water motor. I could literally wake up in the morning, be using hot water, and not even know that the electricity was out because the batteries are supporting it. To me, have a 2.4 kW system, not much, but it will easily support those two motors. So that or pumps. So that was key. Next slide, please. Now, here's the thing, is that you got to look at exactly how your windows are going in. They have to be super good. And there's going to be a point where you need to get up there to put the roof on and do everything. The man lift costs $1,500 a day. It's better to have a tiny footprint and go up, up, up than it is to have a giant footprint and go out, out, out. Like a traditional Texas home is a ranch. And this is a 3-story. So it required a man lift, which is called a man lift. We'll get over it. Also in Vermont, man doors are the doors that people use. The car door, the garage door is the other door that goes up and down for cars. You can see the extra insulation around the windows. Very, very important. Next slide. And that's my favorite corner. Ever since this was a tip-up house, it arrived shrink wrapped. It's called SIPs, structural insulated panels. And it was a freezing cold day when we got the first floor started. And it was really cold, blue sky day. But everybody who was working on the house said, wow, this is so much warmer just getting the sides tipped up. Then the second floor went on, then the third floor went on, and then the porch was finished. And the garage is a stick built. But this is also hardy board. Hardy board is part cement. So it hasn't changed at all in the last 15 years. I like putting the screens on in the summer. I put in windows in the winter. And there's a green concrete floor, porch floor, which is kind of cool because I like not having had a basement, but they overblasted and I wound up moving the mechanicals down to the basement. So that was another little change, but it's a pretty small footprint. Next slide, please. What's a blower door test? That is a blower door test. When I had it down on the solar house, everybody was like, whoa, 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 whoa. We don't hear anything. Yeah, it's a teeny weeny fan. You close up everything in the house. They put it on the door. They start trying to suck air out of the house. When they do that, you go around with an infrared camera and you can see where the leaks are when there's 20 degrees difference. Let's say it's 20 degrees colder outside, warmer in the house. You're bringing in the cold air. The infrared camera picks that up. Very, very, it only takes an hour for the guy to set it up, start measuring. The house in the Bronx is an 1850 barn. Leaky, no insulation. So the blower door test got done twice, once before and once after. We had to do it on 3 floors. There's stairwells and things like that interfere with the actual measurements, but we got in with the caulking, and the caulking went on for 2.5 weeks. There was a Christmas break, and then next slide, please, you begin to see the outside getting done. And this is what's called lifting the shingles to put in the blown-in insulation. So you lift the shingles, ha ha ha, and then they put them back on, and the house has all this gummy look to it. But eventually you get a little refresh the outside with some paint. But all of those brown spots have a hole that's drilled in between each of the 2x4s. And these 2x4s had what we call, there's balloon and fire block, and this had fire block. So they had to do multiple cuts of the shingles and then paste them back on. Well, I haven't had a leak since, and this was 15 years ago. So next. So it's all been caulked. Got the blown in going, but things like the stairwell, that gets the rock wool. That's rock wool. It's really nice stuff. It's also eliminates any kind of bugs, and you wouldn't have any, yeah, with the blown in, you can ask for boron to be added to the little tiny particles of paper. That's what blown in insulation is. And it's all the bags of it are made in China. And during COVID and the shipping things that have gone on, our country wasn't making as many bags of blown-in insulation as what we needed. So this is a problem we have. But the basement has a tiny bit of foam. That's it. So the attic there was no insulation whatsoever in this barn. Next slide, please. In the attic, see the little white polka dots? Okay, they drill into the attic floor, but that little piece that was drilled out is now too small. So the insulation people arrive with discs that are going to fit tightly, and they tap them into place. So that's all over the place. And over time, you just enjoy the fact that you have terrific insulation. Next slide, please. It's made a huge difference. It is so much cooler in summer. The shutters work really well on the west side. I'm right on the street. It's a barn, so you're on the street. And then there's a big tree on the south side. You can sort of see it there. And then it's much, much warmer in winter. And then it's historic district okay. Because this is the Riverdale Historic District in the Bronx. So those shutters they work extremely well. There are 4 windows altogether that have the shutters. And then and I have whisper screens. So my mother had bought these roll down metal screens, and I saw at a home show a beautiful, delightful whisper screen that's just so easy on the tracks. You need that because you're going to be able to open and if you put a permanent screen on for the summer, you can't reach outside to move the shutter docks and close and open the shutters. So that's kind of nice. It's very convenient. How are we doing, Ella? Time-wise, we're okay? And we'll have some time for question and answers. Last slide or next to last slides coming up. Yeah, that's it. Any questions?
Thank you, Wyldon.
You're welcome.
And with that, let's open it up to questions. Ella, do you want to read some that are in the chat? And then let's grab a few people, try to put them on the spot if they don't mind, to see if they have solar, how they have been impacted. Is it good for them? Is it bad for them? Would they encourage others? So let's start with some of the questions.
Yeah, I'm mainly seeing comments, but it looks like Drew asked, would you take the balcony solar route today?
Yeah, that was for Marlene
Ah, thanks,
or
Drew.
anyone else.
Would I take the balcony? Well, I own my house, so I probably wouldn't, but I am encouraging my students to, because most of them don't own it. But that's a good question. Uh, yeah, no, I would do the same thing. I would do a ballasted system. I have a flat roof, and ballasted systems didn't exist in 2000. I put my system in 2004, and we didn't have ballasted options, so. I'll answer one more question that I saw. And I do have 1.2 kilowatts, and I really haven't had an electric bill since May of 2004. 1.2 kilowatts, tiny system, because I did energy efficiency and conservation. And I just, because of climate change, I just bought a very high efficiency heat pump, and I'm going to wait for a year's worth of data. I went through a heating season. Now I'm going to go through a cooling season. And when I get enough data, I'm going to upgrade my system, because I had a evaporative cooler on my house that worked up until now.
Oh. What's the
Um,
square
I
footage of
wanted
your house?
Doesn't matter what the square footage of my house is.
It's,
Okay.
It's how much power I use.
yeah.
Has nothing to do with how
Right.
big my house is. PV has everything
Okay.
to do with how much power I use.
Excellent.
I was going to comment that question that was just up about the cost and the savings. And again, I would reference the Energy Sage. And then if the PowerPoint is a good link, you can just click on it and a link to it. Otherwise, look for their recent reports where they break it down by state. The cost of solar has gone up. The cost of batteries, kind of depends on where you are. But the what we used to call a simple payback is still, it's like 7 to 10 years, and that can be changing at any time, because it's a combination of getting the right equipment and then the installation. And one of the things that we're all working on, another thing that you could do in your community, is work with your community to try to streamline the installation system, where you don't have, if you can kind of streamline the amount of inspections and the length of time for the inspections and the relationships with the utility, then that translates into lower solar costs. And it's a real cause in the industry right now, and probably instigated by losing the incentives, but also looking around the world and seeing that, in Germany or Australia, you can get solar on your home for much less. So, but it's not a bad deal. Before we moved, our system had already paid for itself and way then some. It was just a joy to have. Highly recommended.
Awesome. This might be a question for Wyldon, but Janelle Mindfree asked, what were your savings from before the energy efficiency upgrades and after?
Now, of course, the new built house versus the old barn, they're definitely much less. The old barn, it's night and day. What might have been New York. Okay, one thing Jill's talking about there with the cost is that every state, New York is a very, very high energy cost state. The utilities take in quite a bit. Most utilities right now are doing about 22% of your dollar that you pay in a utility bill is going to pay dividends and things to the stockholders. That's part of it that's not so fair for us, that we have a monopoly, and the monopolies of the utilities, and they're state granted. I like, Jill said, but I like public power. Yeah. So we have a ways to go on that. I think it was like 1,600, and now I've switched to heat pumps. So I did look at January was fierce. It was $1,800 electric bill. I also have an apartment in the barn. So the top floor is the old hayloft, and that is a single studio apartment. So it's a lot of square footage, and it was $1,800 in January. It was 17 or 1,600 in February, and then it'll come back and be a bit more reasonable. But in New York, we pay very, very high. And in Australia, it's $1 a watt. So that's why you have a difference in the payback. If you're in Albuquerque, where you have 360 days of sun, I have 120, 120, 120, 120 sun. This is in Vermont also at the solar house. The 120 sun, 120 partly cloudy, 120, rain or very cloudy. And the way the panels are built now, they're so much more easy. They capture more sunlight regardless.
Mm.
So the savings are terrific, huh?
Oh, I was just going to jump in with a short comment that I didn't really present, which is that in working with women in solar, one of the more interesting groups that I've worked with is public health nurses. And, so when we're talking about cost of solar, the embedded costs of the healthcare related to fossil fuels are not included in any of these calculations. And so, I mean, that's costs. To me, it's like it would be worth, an insurmountable amount of money to keep my kid from having asthma, for example. And these things are not being called to the forefront today with the current EPA. And yet, this is another thing that you can look at and and kind of bring that in when you think about electrification. The electrification actually increases the value of your solar, because if you're running your solar electricity through a heat pump, the end user value is going to be much greater than if you were, running through a resistance heating system, for example. So, that's how all these pieces fit together. But I suppose I didn't have time to talk about the health impacts, but they're enormous.
Yeah, Jill, that's just like the fans. There's so many little pieces, but site orientation, insulation. Once you have those under complete control, you may need makeup air. Not in this old barn. I got a big boost, but makeup air I don't need. The solar house in Vermont has to have makeup air. So I have a tiny thing that's like a 40-watt bulb, and the heat is captured on the way out, and the heat's given back to the air that comes back into the house. So we have fresh air.
I have a question for Marlene. I was really motivated by what just participating in training for PV with women can do. And what would be your advice to people around the country who don't have the luxury of coming to Albuquerque for your class? How can they participate?
Thank you for that question. So I'm not the only one that teaches PV. I do teach a class, an actual whole semester PV certificate program in Albuquerque under the electrical trades. And there is going to be the workshop in Boulder. And Solar Energy International teaches workshops all the time. And they have women only workshops. They do it mostly in Paonia, but they have some in the Caribbean. They have some workshops a few other places. And some of it is, maybe setting something up in your community if you want something. Come talk to ASES and me, and, um, you know, let's get PV out there. I'd love to see lots of women participate.
Karen, we're at the hour.
Me too.
Oh, yeah, we are.
Okay. Let me just ask if there are any other questions, and then I want to just choose someone, if it's okay, out of the audience. And I have a person in mind. I don't see him anymore. Oh, there she is. Paula Carr. Paula recently, last year or year before last, got solar installed for the first time. And I just wanted her to share, if she can, just a little bit about how she's impacted by that. How did that help her or hurt her, if you will?
Unmute yourself,
Paula,
Paula.
there? You're muted, Paula. All right, well, she's not there. I will share that. Well, she's there, but she's not hearing me. I will share that she's a colleague of mine, and she got solar installed, a program that was going on in Washington, D.C. Um, so it was free of charge to her to get the solar installed. And she's saying that her utility bills are now like $20, $17, and the like, as opposed to 100 something, 200 something dollars. So, and we've heard that from not just from Paul, or from multiple homeowners,
Karen,
you know. Yeah, there you go,
Karen,
Paula.
I'm
All right,
I,
really
I'm so
quickly.
sorry. It took forever. I'll make this very quick. Karen is correct, and I'm so glad I was listening to the others. I am so glad. It was actually in 2022, and I had been thinking
Okay.
about getting solar. A long story short, I had been considering getting the panels on my house. My neighbor down the street got hers a few years before I did, and when they came to my house initially, they said I was missing something that I needed, and then this company that came to me in 2022, it was like, well, let's take a look. Happened. So I've had these panels. I will tell you, it has been the blessing of my life because I understand that the costs are going up, whatever, but I look at a $13 bill as a blessing, as opposed to a $400 bill. What my electric bill used to average before I got solar. And I did all the things that you're supposed to do. The LED, but lights. Doing laundry at a certain time. It is really have paid off, and I am just like, wish I could have had it earlier. I could have had it sooner. I'm done,
Thank you so
Karen.
much, Paula. Thank you so much. So with that, everyone, Ella, did you want to close out? Did you have anything else to say? Okay.
No,
With that, we appreciate everyone joining the call this evening. Um, to the women, please, please, please join the coalition, join the movement. Let's keep moving in spite of what's going on, and let's be ready in 2028. When things change, and we believe that they're going to change. At least I do, and we can keep going with this. Climate is not going anywhere. Climate change is happening. It's real, and we want to make sure that we're getting the best out of it. And we believe that women can lead this, and it's not hard, and it's a lot of fun, especially if you're taking classes with Marlene, or you have mentors like Jill and Wyldon. So, and I don't want to forget Ella. Ella set up everything. Ella is program director for ASES, and she runs pretty much everything, outside of the executive director. And we appreciate her always being on every call and helping to set us up and get us going. So thank you, Ella, and thank you to everyone that joined us this evening. We hope to see you at our next event. We hope that you will want to participate and share out your stories as well. And go to ases.org and look at all the programming that we're doing. And hopefully you can see us at the conference in October in Austin, Texas. We're looking forward to it. So thank you so much, and have a great evening.
Bye.
thank you all. Thanks so much. Bye.